Okay, this is part 4 of Nutrition and Health Quotes. It's June 2025. The first one is the great Jack LaLanne, exercise expert who did all kinds of amazing health feats. He said, exercise is queen and nutrition is queen. Together, you've got a kingdom. You need to do both. And he was emphasizing that a lot of people exercise a lot but eat poorly, and they often have health problems. And other people eat well but don't exercise, and they still don't look so great for their age. It's good to do both, but diet's more important. Okay, then he says the human body heals itself. Nutrition provides the resources to accomplish the task. Yeah, a lot of people, what you need to do is get out of the way. Get your sleep, eat the healthy food, and let the body heal itself. Like Dr. McDougall says, the body's always trying to heal. Just give it a chance, and giving it the right nutrition, that's the key thing. Everything in the body functions better with good blood flow. So give it good blood flow, which means eat a low-fat, low-sodium vegan diet. Okay, Dennis Burkitt. If you have small stools, you'll only need small hospitals. No animal except modern man eats more sodium than potassium. It's because potassium comes from plants. Sodium comes from processed food. It's often used as a preservative or a flavorant on meat. Then he says it's better to turn off the faucet than to mop the floor, meaning it's better to prevent disease than to try to treat it. Dr. McDougall, give cure a chance. Start with diet therapy. You can always try the pills later. People should eat a low-protein diet. It's the food. Dr. Klapers and T. Colin Campbell also say the same thing. It's the food that's making people sick. The most common cause of autoimmune disease is leaky gut. The body is always trying to heal. That's a key point. The body's always trying to heal. The treadmill stress test is just a conveyor belt to the cardiac cath lab in the operating room. The usual sales trick is they always tell the people, it's a widowmaker. Okay, at 5 years out, coronary stents and cabbage do not increase longevity at all. Which raises the key question, why is it that the cure rate for coronary artery disease with drugs, stents, and surgery is 0%, but that's what 99.999% of people get, whereas the cure rate with a low-fat vegan diet like the Esselstyn diet is essentially 100%. So people always choose the treatment that never works. Perhaps it has something to do with money. Okay, continuing Dr. McDougall quotes. With asymptomatic patients, there is 0% benefit from screening colonoscopy. Well, that's a big statement. 0% screening benefit from screening colonoscopy. Colon polyps often regress when a person changes their diet. Chef AJ had that experience. She said her colon polyps all went away when she became a vegan. If you want the cure, you've got to avoid the cause. Okay. Thomas Edison. He said, the doctor of the future will no longer treat the human frame with drugs, but rather will cure people by preventing disease with nutrition. Will cure and prevent disease with nutrition. Maimonides, he said, let nothing be treated by diet that can be treated by other. Let nothing be treated by other means that can be treated by diet is how the quote should be. It's like, why not cure something with your diet rather than mess around with all this other stuff? Ben Franklin, the best doctor gives the least medicines. The 3 best doctors are Dr. Diet, Dr. Quiet, and Dr. Merry Man. Laughter mellows you out, lowers your stress response. An apple a day keeps a doctor away. Voltaire, I want my doctor and tailor to believe in God so they don't rob me. The doctor amuses the patient while nature heals him. Anton Chekhov, the great writer, he said, what's the difference between a doctor and a lawyer? A lawyer will rob you. A doctor will rob you and kill you. That's actually an open question. Does the conventional healthcare system, save more patients than it harms? Does it get more patients to live than it gets to lose life? Big question. Depends how you look at it. If you waste a person's time with drugs when they could have cured themselves with hypertension or diabetes, what is that? Hippocrates, all disease begins in the gut. Ginny Martinez, you don't have to be wealthy to be healthy. She's a health coach, works with a lot of Mexican patients. Nathan Pritikin, all I'm trying to do is wipe out heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, and obesity. Gerald Curatola, the dentist, fluoride is the sacred cow of dentistry. Toothpaste should not include ingredients that require a poison control label. Yeah, with little kids taking that stuff. Okay, Peter Rogers, me. Other than fluorine, triclosan, aspartame, saccharin, polyethylene, plastic beads, yes, plastic beads and toothpaste for decoration, sodium lauryl sulfate, propylene glycol, and poison control warnings, toothpaste is really healthy. Okay, drinking 8 cups a day of water is great. It's a great way with tap water to get more fluoride, aluminum, estrogenics, and drug residues like antidepressants into your body. They now find that there's a significant amount of antidepressants potentially in unfiltered tap water. Great. That's why you got to have at least a carbon filter. You don't win the game of health by trying to trick Mother Nature. You win it by doing what she wants you to do, doing what humans are designed to do. High-tech medicine seems very impressive at first glance, but it's really only, for the most part, for uncommon diseases and rare diseases. Like I'll see one case of appendicitis every 2 weeks, but I will see obesity, hiatal hernia, gastroesophageal reflux disease, hypertension, diabetes, coronary heart disease, kidney failure, back pain, cognitive decline, all day long, every day, nonstop. I just assume all the patients have diabetes and hypertension and coronary heart disease because that's a safe assumption. Almost all of them do. The patients love to go for CAT scans, MRI, ultrasounds, x-rays, other medical tests, like going on a Canterbury pilgrimage, okay? But you don't cure a disease by taking a picture of it. That's an important point because people ask me, should I get a cardiac, calcium chest CT screening? I'm like, you already know you got coronary heart disease. Why don't you start fixing it with a diet? Why radiate yourself for nothing? That's stupid. You don't cure a disease by taking a picture of it. You cure it by going low-fat vegan and optimizing all your other health. If it's curable, you'll at least improve it. Okay, less than 1 in 10,000 patient, less than 1 in 1,000 patient wants to do it actually makes a difference. Okay, then I just saw an interesting quote by this guy. City Tutoring Math is his YouTube channel, and he was talking about the Ivy League universities and research and everything, and it's relevant because medical and nutritional research has really become a joke because the corporations have taken it over. But anyways, here's what this guy had to say. He said the Ivy League universities have become a disgrace. The ivy on those buildings has wilted from the once Christian cathedral-like universities, which have now become an atheist circus tent freak show, a heist of money that masquerades as an education. There's nothing higher about modern higher education. There's nothing higher or educational about modern higher education. And likewise for nutrition and health research. That guy is actually very clever and funny. He's a real throwback. If you look at his computer equipment in the back of the room, it looks like it's 50 years old. Okay, we got one more page of these. An anonymous quote. Conventional medicine is all about match the ill to the pill and send a bill, selling drugs. Dentistry is drill 'em, fill 'em, and bill 'em. And then there's another quote. If you don't eat a low-fat vegan diet, no doctor can save you. If you do eat a low-fat vegan diet, you probably don't need a doctor. Okay, an internet viewer made some comments. They said, it's been known since the Sweeney paper in 1927 that diabetes was caused by dietary fat. That was about 100 years ago. Lots of researchers have confirmed those findings like Hemsworth, Kempner, Pritikin, McDougall, Brownlee, Taylor, Shulman, etc. But they never tell us. They never tell the medical students. They never tell the doctors. It's not in any of the medical textbooks. I've been giving these patients BS drugs for decades with no chance of a cure. The patients are never cured by the drugs. If I had known about the vegan diet, I could have at least cured some of them. Kempner was getting better results with obesity, hypertension, diabetes, coronary heart disease, CKD, all that stuff back in the 1940s than we are getting now. It's ridiculous. Starch is what people should eat. Fat's what they need to avoid. I've been reading a lot about mitochondria, and that's the real key to health. That's what we should be focusing on. Okay, another anonymous quote. I told the patient to drink some fluids and get some rest, so he got drunk and passed out. The first wealth is health. That was said by Ralph Waldo Emerson and Schopenhauer. Thomas Jefferson said, every afternoon I go for a long walk. Okay, then there's also an anonymous quote here, the monetary theory of chronic disease and cancer. In other words, if a treatment cannot be monetized, it will not be promoted by conventional medicine. Okay, quote by me, I already said it, you can't cure a disease by taking a picture of it. And if you ate the SAD diet, you already know you got CAD, coronary heart disease, so don't radiate yourself, just start treating it. Ions have personalities. These are quotes by me. Ions have personalities. Potassium is the hardworking middle class, the unsung hero, the manual laborer that makes things work in a cell with the potassium-sodium ion pumps. Magnesium is the strong, mellow hero. Strong because he holds ATP together. Mellow because he blocks the NMDA channel to prevent neuron overexcitability. Calcium is the bossy aristocrat like a wife. Comes in and bosses everybody around, controls what the cell does. Calcium concentrations in the cell are normally minute, like 10,000, 15,000 times lower than they are in the extracellular space. And calcium in comparison with potassium, there's like millions and millions and millions of times more potassium inside a cell than there is calcium. Actually, most of the ions, positively charged ions in a cell are potassium and sodium. Sodium is like the angry poor outside the city gates trying to bust in. And the entry of sodium is coupled to pumping all kinds of things out. Okay, even when it's 10 degrees below zero, all these ignorant patients, you work in any hospital in a cold area and you'll see tons and tons of patients will go to the hospital even on the really, really cold days, but none of them will become vegan. They're willing to have craniotomies, chemotherapy, travel in 10 degree below zero weather, but they don't want the vegan diet, and that's the only thing that could save them. The difference between the benefits and risks of the low-fat vegan diet versus the SAD diet or the paleo-keto carnivore, it's close to 100 to 0. There might be a few indications for a paleo-keto carnivore, like perhaps some of these refractory seizure epilepsy patients. So make it 100 to 1. But for everything else, it's like 100 to 0. The low-fat vegan is so much better. It's not even funny. It's overwhelming, the evidence. Anybody who says otherwise is just speaking nonsense. If you read the papers, you see that's true. Okay, the internal medicine textbooks are all wrong. They never say what causes a chronic disease. They're just designed to sell drugs. They say things like, hypertension, diabetes, obesity, etc. It's associated with aging, seems to be partly genetic. Sometimes an infection might affect it, sometimes it appears due to socioeconomic disparity, like pretending to be all thoughtful, but the reality is it's BS. We know that from the studies, like the Yanomamo, they don't have any hypertension. That the Kenyan blacks don't have any hypertension. That's all BS, okay? So I rewrote the internal medicine textbooks, neurology textbooks, and corrected them to tell people what causes disease, what you can do to avoid it. I learned a lot about disease causation from Dr. McDougall. He's the best doctor who ever lived. He focused on explaining diseases to patients. I've kind of taken it from the point of view of trying to explain the mechanisms and biochemistry to doctors. Also, he was an internal medicine doctor, like most of them, whereas my background is, or family practice, most of them. My background is more of a brain doctor, and the brain's a lot fussier than the heart, so one has to pay much, much more attention with regard to the brain about mitochondrial inhibitors and other toxins because they cause brain damage, including the stuff in the water, fluoride and aluminum. Okay, supply and demand theory of neurodegeneration because of a mismatch between oxygen delivery, metabolic rate of the neuron, and ATP production capacity, mitochondrial function. That's the most common cause of dementia. And the dilatory theory of chronic cerebral hypoperfusion is really a subset of that. Most nutrition experts focus on the heart. I focus on the brain. And it's more than food. The vegan community is pretty good about food, other than people recommending too much high-fat stuff. They know a lot about food, but they almost never talk about toxins. And if you really want to optimize brain function, you got to avoid all those toxins as best you can. Excitotoxins, mitochondrial inhibitors, SERCA inhibitors, peroxynitrite generators, because they all end up in the same result: poor neuronal function. If you plug up your arteries with a bad diet, no medical, surgical, bullshitology, or technology is going to save you. Hospitals, big pharma, and big food are all connected by the yellow brick road of dollars. And then people say to me, well, my grandpa smoked, or my uncle smoked and drank, ate meat, and slept with hookers, and lived to be 90. And I'm like, well, that's great. Some people do somehow get by. If you had 100 blind people and got them to cross the street, someone would survive, but that doesn't mean it's a good idea. Moderation is for mediocrities. People who want excellence pursue extremes of health. Health thinking should not be social. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Variety is the spice of life. Everything in moderation. That's for losers. If you want to be healthy, you should think about it like in a biblical way. Thou shalt not eat meat. Thou shalt not eat oils. Because that's what works. It's like you don't tell an alcoholic you can smoke on the weekend. You could drink on the weekend, or a smoker, you can smoke on the weekends. They'll fail if they do that. They have to stop smoking. They have to stop drinking. Okay, the healthiest way to live is basically like Adam and Eve, but keep your indoor heating and plumbing. The most common cause of back pain is ischemic spine, due to lack of blood flow, due to atherosclerosis, all those same risk factors. But also, fluoride, glyphosate contribute to it, and a lack of vitamin C. Anyways, I hope that was helpful. That's the end of part 4 of quotes.